Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brent Hoskins, and I serve as Executive Director of the Business Technology Association. And I'd like to welcome you to today's Diversifying My Business webinar. Today's webinar is Know Who's Ready to Talk Tech, Turning Marketing Engagement into a Daily Sales Priority List. It will be presented by Sebastian Zabala, Director of Business Development, and Carey Scott, Director of Marketing and Client Services at Evolved Office. So if you have questions along the way, just type them into the Zoom Q&A or Zoom chat there on the screen, and we will address those at the end of the presentation. So with that, let's get started. Carey, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, actually, I'm going to say, Sebastian, if you want to get things started and kind of go through and introduce yourself as well, we can do that. As Brent mentioned, we are at the webinar doing Know Who's Ready to Talk Tech, Turning Marketing Engagement into a Daily Sales Priority List. We're going to talk about ourselves a little bit more. So, Sebastian, you want to introduce yourself a little bit more extensively?
Yeah, definitely. My name is Sebastian Zabala. Some of you may know me. We might have met in the past at a former BTA event or whatnot. I'm the Director of Business Development here at Evolved Office, and I'm with Carey Scott, who's kind of our head of Director of Marketing and Client Services. And we will also be on that first slide Brent had at the Kansas City. We should be out there as well, so we'd love to meet some of you guys like in person as once we get out there.
It should be a great event. I was already teasing Brent with his Jay Leno's pop-up banner behind him. Looking forward to that amazing event for a 100-year celebration. There he is. There he is. Thanks for indulging me, Brent. I appreciate that. Sebastian, why don't you talk to us a little bit about Evolved Office before we dive into the agenda?
Yeah, definitely. So, for those of you who may know or may not know, we've kind of been a part of this office tech industry for over 15 years. We primarily focus in this industry, so that's kind of our unique approach. We do end-to-end marketing solutions, so everything from, marketing automations to CRM integrations, helping kind of build the bridge between marketing and sales, which is, the focus of this presentation we'll have today. And yeah, we just are all around, not just a software provider, but we also, are a partner with many, dealers and MSPs in the industry, small and large.
So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our agenda for the day. And the big picture to keep in mind is that I'm going to take the marketing manager role in this presentation, and Sebastian's going to take his side from the sales perspective, his biz dev perspective. So we're going to pass things off between us, with me talking about some of those marketing best practices and things that we can do on the marketing side, whether you do have a marketing manager in your dealership, if there's an assistant that does all of your marketing on top of a bunch of other things, if you've got a whole marketing department, no matter what, that's my perspective. And then from Sebastian's perspective is more on the sales side of things. So we're going to start out by talking about why follow-up breaks down. So that's that gap between marketing and sales. We'll talk about that a little bit. We'll then dive into, okay, who's ready to talk? What does that actually look like, and how can we identify that as marketers? Then we'll build that daily sales priority list that we promised with the title and all the marketing that we've done leading up to this webinar today. We'll move into sales execution, talk tracks, timing, next steps, that kind of thing. And we're going to leave you with a great 30-day implementation plan that's really simple that you can get started with, so that, let's say, by August 1st, you can feel like you have a handle on things. So really looking forward to the presentation, and I'm the one that's going to get us started. So we're talking marketing here. What's going on? What's the gap between engagement with your marketing materials and your sales following up? I'm the marketing manager. I know that I have emails going out. I've got social media posts going out. I've got maybe some LinkedIn ads, some Google ads, my SEO. I'm really working on my website and making sure that it's up to date and those kinds of things. Marketing activity is happening, but sales follow up, there's a disconnect there, right? Either it's not happening fast enough, or there's no context to that. So what happens? Marketing pass off a report to the VP of sales, the sales team, and says, here you go, here are all your leads, and they don't know how to make sense of the analytics, right? That's our job, to make sense of the data, to make it really easy for sales to pick up the baton and run with that. There's another caveat here. There's another kind of element that elephant in the room. Some reps just don't trust marketing leads, right? That's an issue sometimes. So we have to earn their trust by showing that the information that we're providing is really good quality information. Don't worry, we're going to show you how in just a few slides. But what's happening during that period, right? What's happening when your marketing's going forward, here are the analytics, oh, it's not me, it's you, like you guys have to follow up. All of that disconnect between sales and marketing means that your prospects are moving on. It's not helping the company, it's not helping either of the individual departments. Sales and marketing need to be besties. We have to be best friends here and work with each other to really get that engine moving when it comes to your growth of your business. So one of the first things that needs to be defined here is, what is engagement and what is it not, right? Like, what are we talking about when we're saying, hey, we have a lead because they engaged with our marketing? Sales reps don't really understand what that means, but it needs to be defined individually within your dealership so everybody's on the same page, right? So engagement is a signal. It's not a lead. Think about how you engage with your own inbox every day. Just because you open an email doesn't mean you're interested in the services being offered to you in that marketing email that you receive, right? So when you're thinking about, hey, this person opened an email, that's not really giving you much. It just means that they opened the email. It doesn't mean that they're interested, they're not clicking. What are they doing? It's a signal, but it doesn't relate to a lead that says, hey, this person is interested and that you need to follow up with them. What you need to do is kind of take a more nuanced approach as the marketing representative for your dealership. If they're clicking on the same topic, right? They're learning more about it. There's some intent behind their engagement. That's when the light bulbs need to start popping off for a marketing person to say, oh, there's some interest behind that, right? We're inundated with content as Americans in the world in 2026. There's so much content. If somebody's taking the time to read a blog of yours, an article in a newsletter, those kinds of things, take note. It's important. So on top of that, if they're doing multiple signals that are close together, that means they're ready to talk. And from a marketing perspective, the goal here is to say, hey, sales team, you need to talk to this person. This is our passing off. You need to call them. You need to email them, whatever that means. But we're telling the sales team, hey, you need to have that conversation, and then let the sales team do what they do best and make the sale, right? In preparation for today's webinar, I did a little research. And I was looking and saying, okay, like, what are the current statistics for how many touch points it takes? Touch points being an email received, a click on a blog, even like word of mouth is huge and shouldn't be forgotten in this instance. If somebody says, hey, and hypes you up to a prospect or a current customer, even if you're trying to make that upsell, that's a touch point. And current data says that it takes about 14 of those touch points to convert when it comes to B2B, specifically B2B sales, and also to SMBs, right? Fortune 500, bigger corporations is a whole different ballgame. But 14 touch points is a lot. So that's just to say it's more than just an open. You can't, as a marketer, say, hey, Mr. Salesman, go call this person because they opened an email. It has to be more nuanced. Your evaluation of the data really needs to be more nuanced and more specific to really provide those quality leads over quantity of leads to your team. Let's focus this in on dealerships specifically, right? So this is kind of a generalization. Not everybody's going to fall into this camp, but in general, we have, as a dealership, people here attending, members of VTA, generally have that hardware side of the business, that bread and butter foundational copier lease, service leases that really generate a ton of revenue annually for your dealership. That's usually the bread and butter. But as Brett was mentioning in the series that we're doing here and these webinars, it's all about diversifying what you're selling. So as we know, people are moving into kind of the more software side of a business where you can sell IT, cybersecurity, even document management, workflow solutions, those kinds of things are all under that umbrella of software solutions. The big key thing here is that it's not totally different, but there is a little bit of difference between how you approach a hardware-based marketing engagement and lead scoring there versus IT. And we'll dive into that a little bit. But this also applies to other services that you may be adding to your business. So when you think of adding water, for example, water is kind of a hardware. It's a cooler, it's a thing, it needs service. That kind of falls into this camp. VoIP is a little bit of both. It's a little bit of a mystery because it does have that hardware component, but a lot of software is included in that as well. So that's something to think about and really look into more as you're analyzing your data of the marketing engagement that's coming through. Physical security is another one that comes up a lot. So however that shakes out for you and what you're currently selling, or maybe what you're considering selling, just think of these as kind of these two general planes of options when it comes to marketing. And the bottom line here is to route the right signal, the right engagement signal to the right rep at the right time. It seems very clear and very easy. And it is, it's very simple. At the same time, without the right tools in place for automation to really help you, like what we do at Evolved Office, it can really be challenging for people to get this right. One of the things that I really want to harp on just for a second, if you'll indulge me here, is the right rep, this second kind of middle part of this goal that I've outlined for you. So one of the things is to consider if you've had the same rep that, amazing sales rep that knows exactly how to sell all of your copiers. They know MFP lines backwards and forwards. They understand the inner workings. They work with service. They are the go-to when you have a question about copiers, right? Or any of your sales team has a question about copiers. That rep may not be the right rep for a document management lead, for example. They might not understand that software in the way that needs to be understood to actually close a deal and have a really great conversation with a prospect, or if you're upselling with one of your current customers. This can be challenging, right? It depends on how your internal sales force is kind of set up when it comes to, not Salesforce as the CRM, but your sales team is set up when it comes to that, so that you can make some decisions about, hey, this is a person or this is the team that needs to be contacted on IT. These are our copier experts, right? And we need to divide that up and make sure that people are talking to the right people. Sometimes that's territory based, and you might be territory based when it comes to your sales team as well. But it might be something to consider that if you're really trying to break in or break some new business with some of these software based options, you might need to consider who is the right rep to send that to. And the right time is all about how deep of an intent that engagement is. We'll talk about that, I promise. Okay. 3 buckets of signals that we're getting, right? So defining the signals helps with the rub between marketing and sales. It helps align everybody and make sure that everybody's singing from the same sheet of music, right? So this is something that everybody's more than likely familiar with. I'm just going to contextualize it into what a dealer would expect or how your dealership would kind of align this, right? So you've got hot leads. That's intent, right? If somebody's asking for pricing, if somebody's asking for a quote or a demo, to book a meeting, to do an IT assessment or print infrastructure, print fleet assessment, those are really far down the funnel. That's the hottest lead that you can get. It means that they actually want to speak with a human and they're telling you that they want to speak with someone on your team. These need to be followed up as soon as possible, immediately. This is the hottest lead you will ever get. When it comes to your digital marketing, right? Interest is warmer. So if you're thinking of, kind of like a warmer, they're kind of investigating, they're doing some research, they're clicking on the same thing a few times, the same category or topic of categories. If they're downloading a spec sheet, guys, nobody downloads a spec sheet or brochure for anything. For anything hardware related or even IT related, just for fun, right? There's some intent behind that action. They're not reading it just as casual readers. They are curious because of a reason. And that's something to keep in mind as a marketer. Hey, they're downloading spec sheets. That's interesting. We need to kind of move this up the ladder a little bit. Or even going to some of your category pages on your website. And if they're directed from email and you're able to follow that click, just keeping an eye on that and saying, hey, this is a warmer lead. It's not necessarily hot, but it's warmer. And then awareness is more of a cool lead, right? They're actually opening your emails. That's a good thing. They're aware of your brand. They're aware of what you're selling. Maybe they're clicking on a general blog that's a press release or something more just general, as opposed to being something very specific about one of your services or solutions or one of your products, your hardware products. Social engagement falls under this bucket as well. It means that they recognize your brand. It's cooler. They're at the top of that funnel. And then as they start saying, hey, this intent is getting hotter, that's when timing really, really matters when it comes to your marketing and how you move forward and engage sales with starting those conversations. Okay, so we talked about the 2 tracks. I just want to kind of outline a few examples when it comes to both of them individually. So when you're thinking about hardware, if somebody's clicking on a lease upgrade or requesting a quote, right? These are examples of exactly on that hardware side, what they would be engaging with and why it would matter. So nobody just wants to learn more about production print in the middle of a workday on a Tuesday. If they're looking into a production print article, that's saying something to you. That's giving you a signal that you need to kind of investigate that and make sure that it's on your radar, right? These are examples of how and the different types of collateral on the hardware side of things that people may be engaging with. The bigger thing to keep in mind here is that we're talking on hardware, repeat activity within a certain time frame. Typically, that time frame is about 90 days, so a quarter of the year, right? So if someone needs a new MFP, if they think they might need a wide format printer, or maybe it's a water cooler, for example, those hardware-based pieces, it's all about timing for that. If their workhorse is working for them, they're not doing any of these clicking. This isn't happening, right? With the exception of if their lease is coming to an end, they may click around for some lease information, which would require pretty timely follow-up anyway. So think about, hey, they're clicking within the same 90-day time period. They need a new piece of hardware. They need a new machine. We need to engage them, or we need to talk to them about the affordability of production print, affordability of wide format. Start the conversation. You are a marketer. You're telling the sales team it's time to start the conversation with these people. That's what all of these signals are telling you. Flip side here is the IT side of things. So when you're thinking about IT, the clicks are more kind of nuanced with what type of IT. Are they interested in cybersecurity? Is it IT support? Is it backup? Do they live in a state that has tornadoes or hurricanes, right? Does that matter to them? And that's going to be told by your general customer base anyway. But these kinds of clues are signals on how to engage and when to engage with that customer, when to start that conversation. If they're downloading security checklists, they're not doing it for fun. They need something from what your assets are. Providing this type of collateral, compliance one-pagers, it's huge. People really need to understand that. So if you're providing it, they're engaging with it, that's going to give you those signals on how to start the conversation with a prospect, or even when it comes to upselling, especially with IT. This is a little bit different than that time frame, though. This is about multiple touches across a couple of different assets. So it's not that there's that immediate need for the hardware in their office, so the time frame isn't as important here as it's the repeated multiple touches across a couple of different types of assets, whether that's a blog, or maybe that's a newsletter article. Maybe they're engaging on your website and filling out a form. That's huge. That's a hot lead if they're filling out a form, right? So think about it a little bit differently It's very similar, but it's a little bit of a nuance there that can really determine when to hand off that lead to your sales team. Okay, when it comes to handing off the lead to your sales team, you have to spell it out for that person. We call this the context card, right? What does sales need before engaging and starting that conversation with the prospect or in upselling with your current customer base? What information do they need? First of all, they need to know who the account is and who the contact is, right? Which specific contact is actually engaging with that content, with the marketing materials that you're putting out. That's really important, because if you just call whoever from the CRM, oh, this is a decision maker, but they're not engaging with the content, it's going to fall flat. So you've got to give that perspective to them. Give them the topic. Are they clicking around about water? Are they clicking around about IT, document management? Is it the new line of MFPs that just came out that they're talking about? What page are they visiting? What asset did they download? Provide that information to your sales team. Give them that frequency, particularly as we discussed when it comes to the hardware side of things, right? And frequency when it comes to the more software-based solutions. That's something to consider as well. Just to give it a little context, to give it some idea about how urgent this is. Say why it matters. From a marketing perspective, we can provide angles to sales. Sales teams are going to do what they want. But saying, hey, it might make sense. They're clicking around on IT-based things. There's some really high intent clicks and engagement and signals that I'm seeing for this customer. It may make sense to talk to them about our IT services, about how we can consolidate billing with that, because they're already a copy release customer, right? Give them a little bit of something, at least a starting point. They're going to do what they want, but it'll give them a little bit of context to how to start that call. And maybe suggest even a next step. Hey, does this require a phone call? Does this require an in-person visit? Maybe a video from an email, and just talk to them like I'm talking to you right now. What's a good angle for them? Provide that information. And then the last thing is that assigned rep. Who makes sense? Again, this is something you're from C-level down. Everybody needs to be on the same page. But thinking about, hey, this is probably a great option for Joe to make this sale because they know the most about document management. Maybe that's going to require an intro, right? Like from their copy release sales rep. Thinking through that on behalf of the sales team is part of our job as marketers to set them up for success. Our job is to make sure that they get to the conversation when they need to. It's not to make the sale. It's the sales team's job to make the sale. We're just providing that information to them. And that's where the daily sales priority list comes into play. And this is where Sebastian takes over. So Sebastian, you ready? You good to go?
Yeah, thank you, Carey.
Absolutely.
First before I dive into this, definitely, everything that we went over, that Carey touched on, a lot of it obviously can be, a lot of work if you're doing it manually. That's why it's important to have tools in place, kind of like what we do at Evolve, where we actually can automate a lot of what she went over so that it's not, the sales team can get what they need, but then it's not all on the marketing manager or the marketing team to have to like figure all that out manually every time or whatnot. You just figure it out once, you automate it and whatnot. But then, yeah, we're able to reap the benefits of having all that in place so that we kind of know when to take over. And that's where, things like the daily sales priority list start. Depending, of course, on your dealership, maybe if you're a smaller dealer, maybe it's not a daily sales priority list. Maybe it's a weekly one, right? But however you cut it, you want to be able to have some type of cadence in place so that you can review, what the hottest leads were. If you guys create some type of like lead scoring is what we use at Evolved Office, and you're able to create, threshold or point system saying, these accounts are the ones that are interested in these, categories or services and solutions. You're then able to kind of take that and see what are your actionable items for your sales reps to actually, go ahead and try to, take on the next steps. So, you'll know the top engaged accounts, but you'll also know what are they actually, they're not just hot leads, but what are they actually interested in? So that's where the context card that Carey was mentioning. And then from there, with your sales team, you want to figure out what's the outreach that goes with that. And like she mentioned, if it's hardware, it might go one way. If it's managed IT, it might go another way. So, back to the scoring, we like to say, keep it stupid simple because a lot of teams try to overcomplicate this. You really don't need to. In our Evolve tool, for example, we have, set scoring in place, for a lot of it. So, simple things like an open equals 1 click. If they click on a button, it's 5 clicks and so on. So that way you create a threshold when it comes to the points. So for one company, it might mean if, a certain contact gets 50 points on, managed print services, that triggers something in the CRM that says, hey, Sebastian, go ahead and give this guy a call. Or it might, for another company, say, I need 100 points on, an MFP type of campaign, and then someone does the outreach. But that way you kind of have some systems in place so that when is the right time to make those actionable steps, and you know to prioritize the ones that are the hottest and let the other ones kind of churn and burn as they build up those points as well. And of course you're going to have your unsubscribes. That's natural. Like Carey said, we get a lot of emails here and there. I always tell our customers, like, don't worry too much about that. It's just people filtering out themselves. And it's actually better because now, as your messaging continues, you'll be able to know that you're actually hitting the people that might be more inclined or interested in what you have to offer. So this is like a little example. I believe this might be Salesforce or Agent Dealer. And we're integrated with a number of different CRMs. So this is just an example, but you're able to create, off that point system, an automated, campaign that'll then trigger a task within our CRM that'll say, hey, this person, hit the threshold that we had set in place, and now it create a task, or you could even create a deal out of that. And then now if you can dive deeper into like a certain account, you'll be able to see, Carey, on the next slide, it'll see what that person was actually interested in. So not only do you get the task, but now when you dive into that at the contact level, you'll be able to actually know this person. For here, we were sending them, different types of marketing. They obviously might have been interested in other things, but the one that stood out the most that we're getting the most points on is managed print. Now, as a salesperson, you're still going to look at the rest of it and say, all right, there might be an angle for cybersecurity, maybe, even a little on the telecom or whatnot. But if I'm going to go in and lead, what am I going to talk to this person about? If I want to hit what they're actually interested on, it's going to be that, MPS first. And of course, you'll be able to see what all the other things are they clicked on and below. But this lets me know where am I going in, to kind of hook them into the conversation. And then, of course, from there, you could, explain a couple other items if you want. And the piece that we like to do with all of our customers is help automate as much as possible because we know everyone's super busy. Carey doesn't have all day to sit there and figure out the context card for each one of these leads we might garner or whatnot. So the same goes with dealerships and MSPs is you guys don't want to have to do all the manual stuff. It's more about thinking through the process one time and then learning how to automate that so that everything's in place for your future marketing and so on. So once you have a point system and you know how you're going to lead score and whatnot, then you could figure out, hey, if that passes the threshold and now I know that person was interested in managed print, maybe my next step is going to do call them that day. The beautiful part of doing the automations is that you're not relying on someone to relay that information. With the automations in place, you're knowing right at the moment. So if you want to be a shark, you could jump on it like within the hour, but maybe you want to just give it a day or so on. So you'll know exactly when things happen, and it's just about a trigger or a workflow that you implement in your CRM. So then, obviously you know how to lead into, like I said, MPS, and you'll be able to know what is the questions you want to ask that person to drive to the next steps. And that's where this kind of comes in is like, obviously some of us have, are really seasoned, sales vets where they can wing pretty much any call. But if you're trying to implement this and have some structure in place, or you're maybe building your team up and whatnot, you know that you have to kind of have the sales talk tracks in place. So if someone is looking and they say, hey, this person was interested in hardware, this is how I'm going to go ahead and start that conversation. If they're interested in IT, this is how I'm going to go ahead and do it. And then the whole goal is, you're not going to sell them on the first call. We all know that. You're just trying to keep that conversation going. Now you're on their radar. They're on your radar, and you're just trying to bridge that gap and see how can you go to that next step. And the next call, maybe it's about a visit. That falls on the dealership. How do you guys handle it? Maybe, if you're in a smaller market, it might mean, going over there and talking to them in person. If you're in bigger markets, maybe it's just another Zoom call or Teams call.
Before I move on, Sebastian, I have to say this out loud. I will not be able to sleep tonight. Please, please make sure that your salespeople do not start a conversation with, "Hi guys, hey Mr. Customer, I saw that you clicked on our email." That's not helpful at all. It's not going to get you very far. It's going to freak people out. So make sure that you're treating them on how to kind of approach this delicately, and not
Definitely.
call them out on, "Hey, I saw you clicked on a couple emails. Can we talk about it?" Talk tracks are important in that respect. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad Carey pointed that out. You don't want to show them like Big Brother's watching. It's more like this is to help your sales team be able to start that conversation, but yet still be, naturally, able to do that. So it doesn't seem forced or anything.
Thank you.
And then of course, we tie it back. Like me and Carey are constantly in conversation. I have my team of salespeople. Carey has other people working in marketing. But at the end of the day, it's about closing the loop. So we want to always see like we got the leads on our end. Did they fall flat? Did they develop, follow-ups? Was there, deals made out of them? Did we set meetings and whatnot? So you always want to figure out, what happened to those leads, right? Sometimes, like it says here, right? You connected with them, they weren't ready. You were able to set up a meeting, which is best case scenario, or they just didn't want it at the moment, or they might be working with your competitor. However way, the good, bad, and ugly, you still want to relay that back to your marketing so that they know maybe it's about tweaking the messaging, maybe it was something else that they can help fine tune. But without that, closing that loop, you're not going to be able to refine what you're doing from your marketing to sales. You're bridging that gap really. And then you also want to know what the next steps are, so you let marketing know why was that lead, what was it that they told you, and then that'll kind of help the next time you want to touch base with that same lead. Maybe they get put in a different type of campaign, even different things like that. And then if this is something you don't have in place yet, right? You want to be able to start small. We always say, don't, if you got 10 sales reps, don't go ahead and try to do this with all 10 sales reps. Because the first, the most, I guess, you're going to use the most of your brain is figuring out the very beginning of it, which is like, what do you think is going to be a hot lead? Is it that 50 points? Is it that 100 points? Then you're able to define what those signals are. Then, like Carey mentioned, maybe you have two different type of sales reps for a certain account, right? Like your IT rep isn't going to be the same as your hardware guy. So you'll figure out where is that going to get routed to. Then you try it out, right? Maybe two reps, couple accounts, however you want to cut it. You refine that scoring. Maybe we look and say, hey, we did it with 50, 50 points on the threshold. We found that those leads really didn't do much. Let's bump that up. Let's do 100 points as the threshold now. That's what we will define as a hot lead. Then, you figure that out. Things in the context card. Maybe you need to know a little bit more information for that lead. You felt like you weren't super prepared or whatnot. So all those things, you're just fine tuning it so that your marketing and sales are really talking to each other and they're working with each other and for each other. And then, check up on it, do your weekly reviews. And after that, I think once you have some success, then it's like you're able to go ahead and scale that out. But don't try to rush it, because if you try to rush it, you got everyone trying to figure it out on the fly, and it just won't, work as well in that sense.
And Sebastian, just to kind of drive this home a little bit with you, would you say that the quality of the lead is more important than the quantity of the leads when it comes from that sales perspective when we're handing those off to you from the marketing side?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
So, so giving sales 100 leads that where 99 fall flat versus just giving them the one that's really a good quality lead, they're always going to follow up on your leads if that one comes to fruition. You're not wasting their time with the 99 that are just, hey, they opened an email, right? It needs to be bigger and better quality, and starting small is really where it starts. So just confirming that with you on this last side,
Yeah,
quality
definitely,
quality over quantity.
for sure.
That's what we have for you guys today. I know it's a lot of information, but we do want to open it up for some questions. I know that Brent mentioned that he'll be able to kind of facilitate some of those for us. Um, Sebastian, you want to talk about what the QR codes are on the screen?
Yeah, so over here, you guys could book a meeting. Like I said, a lot of what we went over, if you do it all manually, you're gonna be doing this for like months, right? So that's where our tool, Evolved Office, comes in. I'd love to, give anyone a demo if you guys aren't. I see a few of our customers are also on here, so hi to everyone.
Thank
But,
you.
and the other side, if you want to just learn more about what we do, that'll be the QR code on the right. But either way, we really appreciate, everyone who was able to take some time out to attend.
Absolutely. We're appreciative of those who attended today, and thank you, Sebastian and Carey, for your presentation. Attendees, now is the time. If you've got some questions you want to ask, you can type them in. I do see there's a thank you for the information, so thank you, David. But one of the questions before that is, how do you prevent reps from dismissing marketing leads as low quality? Thoughts?
I'll let Carrie take that one.
You can't say everything is a lead. It can't always be a lead. It kind of goes back to dialing it in with two very kind sales reps on your team to make sure that those leads are actually good quality leads. And you got to prove it to people over time, right? You've got to be able to say, not everything is a lead, quality over quantity, working with your team and making sure that intent level that we discussed, right? Like if they hey, click to book a demo or book a meeting with you, that intent has to be really taken seriously across the board. And you can't make an open be more than just an open. So part of that is just building trust between sales and marketing and becoming those besties that I talked about earlier.
Mhm.
Thank you, Carey. Another question says, what are the biggest mistakes you see dealers make when trying to um, connect marketing activity to sales action?
So the biggest mistake that dealers make when they're trying to bridge that gap between marketing and sales, I would say, is taking too long and not defining ownership, I would say, of the account. Sebastian, does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I would say,
That gap?
that's kind of why we exist, I guess. Not to like toot our
Mhm.
own horn, but that's the biggest issue why we deal with a lot of the dealers and so on. They always have that disconnect. It sits with marketing. Marketing could do an awesome job, get a ton of leads, and then the salespeople don't follow up on it quick enough. So then by the time you reach out, they might already have moved on. Maybe your competitor already got to them before you did. So it's really that time to action, I think, makes the biggest difference.
And I might also add, like, just to take some ownership on the marketing side, it's like Downton Abbey, front of the house and the back of the house. On the marketing side, I will say that you've got to be real specific with sales teams. You can't just say, here are the analytics for that campaign we did. Like that doesn't help them. They don't know how to read those analytics. We've got to be really specific and do the heavy lifting to analyze that and pass those leads off in a timely manner, which is where automations and integrations really come through and help on the marketing side, but also kind of doing some of that heavy lifting for them.
All right, another question. How do you get skeptical sales reps to actually trust and use engagement data?
Oh, the skeptical sales reps. Sebastian, from a sales rep perspective, if you get leads from our tool, right? So those are automated through our own CRM, and you get those as tasks, but just like what we showed in the
Yeah, it's
slide.
like anything when you first start when we like started, right, and we wanted to start putting the threshold on the lead scoring and whatnot. That's why I was saying like some dealership 50 points on a category might make sense. For another one, 150 might make sense. It's going to be kind of the back and forth and figuring out when you were at 50, points, were those able to convert? Okay, they weren't, then you change that a little bit. But really it's the time kind of you have to just refine it and work on it to get to the point where okay, now they're good. As a salesperson, right? Like I'll take any lead you give me, right? But I'll obviously be truthful about
Bless
what
you.
converted and what didn't.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Another question, if our CRM isn't up to snuff, do you
Mm.
find that it's a disadvantage or will all this apply with no CRM integration?
I would say this is where some of your other tools may come into play. And so, from that dealer perspective, maybe your CRM is a hot mess. It's hard to keep up with it. As my grandmother would say, it's easier to keep up than to catch up. And once you hit a slope, it can be really hard. I would say that your best bet then is to you need to kind of clean out the CRM, but at the same time, I would definitely suggest leveraging maybe some other tools like eAutomate. Your eAutomate data is going to be accurate data, and that's something that you can pull through and start segmenting your data there and using that as kind of a touch tone initially as you do some of that cleanup with the data that's in your system. I will say 100% you are not alone. There are, we have daily conversations with dealers that are just really concerned about their CRM data. We can help with that. It's hard, it's challenging, but at the same time, there's some nuggets, there's some gold in there, especially if you are using a tool like eAutomate and that on your website and through your CRM.
Very good. Another question is, how is Evolved Office using AI effectively to help drive content and messaging?
So a lot of what we do, like anything now, like you pretty much do anything, it is going to be AI. So we, have always been driven with content kind of going first. Of course, now with AI in place, we knew that there was always that place where we needed to advance our stuff. So now we have things like brand voice where, you could get really simple where you could create, just new email, social media posts, things like that. Or you could get crazy and if you got like 20 reps and you want each rep to have their own brand voice because one guy might be in California, the other guy's in Florida, and the other guy's in New York, and they might have, a different way of saying certain things or even different baseball teams or whatever. You could create things like brand voice. And that is a way that you're able to kind of alter your messaging. And, let's say you write one piece of content, but you want it to go out through all your reps. You could have the brand voice take over, make it unique to each rep, and then you could blast it that way. So there's very different. We could have a whole webinar, I think,
We
about how we're
could.
using AI.
One of our favorite things, I'm assuming that some of the people here at the webinar know our CEO, Mark Spring. And one of my favorite examples of brand voice that he gives is he rewrites our content in the voice of Hulk Hogan. And it's hilarious. It's not anything that we'd ever send out, but just, hey, brother, what do you know about document management? Like, that's hilarious. And it gets the point across, right? Similarly, though, writing one piece initially, our AI tools are great to kind of make those into vertical pieces very quickly, right? So you'll be able to turn that into your general business piece, and then you can send it to healthcare, and it'll say, does your healthcare facility or healthcare organization, does your law firm, does your legal partner status, whatever that is, however you want to change it for those verticals, it does it on the fly very, very quickly. When you do have your CRM kind of together and you can start segmenting those audiences and really talking to the people who are receiving it, makes a big difference in the outcomes of your marketing.
All right, some more questions here. Where do you usually see the fastest wins when a dealer starts using engagement data this way?
fastest wins is, I would say, gaining trust in the sales team so they start taking it seriously if you find that threshold correctly, right? Like if you see where it moves from the quantity of leads to the quality of leads, and then once the sales reps are kind of on board and they see the value in that, that's a huge win. I would say if you want to make some wins, though, as starting with upselling is a great opportunity for you, right? Like, so using your current customer base, you know who you have current copy or leases with. Again, you can use that e-automate data. If you're not very sure about your current CRM status of that data, using those and upselling into some of those software-based services, document management, or even hardware when it comes to maybe you're opening water, that kind of thing. You can go from there.
How much data is enough before a rep should take action?
I think that's a great question, and my answer is it depends. It's
Mhm.
it's how you structure your point system, right? So that intent level matters. If it's a hot lead and they're clicking book a demo, you need one form fill on your website. You got to respond to that immediately. So part of it is working with your leadership team and your sales team to figure out what that threshold is, and that'll help guide your way.
Another question. How should a dealership adjust this process if they have a small sales team,
Mm.
limited marketing resources?
That happens all the time.
Yeah.
Sebastian, I've been talking a lot. Do you want to jump in on that one?
No, no worries. I think actually this makes even more sense the smaller of a dealer that you are,
Mm,
because what happens is typically your marketing manager isn't only your marketing manager, he's also maybe helping with other items or doing other tasks. So the more of it that you automate, the better off you are. So, spend that first week or two really getting it automated and getting things set up. That way it doesn't become the full-time job for that person just to have to pass leads along. They could be a little bit more creative. They could think on how to get new ones and whatnot. So I think the smaller you are, it makes a bigger difference. Obviously the bigger you are, it also helps out too. But the dealer that has a whole team of 10 people in marketing is obviously has more time to deal with it than the dealer that's just a one-man band on the marketing side.
All right, great questions, great answers. Appreciate it. I'm looking at attendees at Q&A and chat. I don't see any additional entries there. While we're waiting, you can see on screen there a promotion for our next webinar. Um, it is another Diversifying My Business webinar, which takes place at 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, August the 19th. That webinar is entitled From Copper to Cloud, Making the Move with eGoldFax. It'll be presented by R.H. Shepard, who's the channel sales manager at eGoldFax. You can see there on screen. Incidentally, you may have noticed that this webinar today has been recorded, and so a link to the recording will be made available on our website tomorrow. There's also a PDF of the PowerPoint, so if you want to take a look at that, it's there as a resource to you. It'll be on the BTA website as well. PowerPoint probably today, the recording tomorrow. You would just go to bta.org/diversifying, so diversifying with an ing. You'll be able to see that, and then you'll be able to register for that next webinar we mentioned earlier, a moment ago, the one on August 19th. I should also note that this was the 35th Diversifying My Business webinar. The recordings of all of the previous 34 are on the website as a resource to you. And they don't go back that many years, so they're very timely still, and you'll be able to see the PowerPoints. We also have a companion webinar series, Building My Business webinars, and we've had 222 of those. So they are also on the website nearby. You'll be able to see them under education, building my business, 222 webinars, recordings for most all of them, and then the PDFs of the PowerPoints. I was telling Sebastian and Carey when we began that I would have recorded all 220 of those. 222 goes back to January of 2008. Trouble is, we were all just using Zoom for the first time. I didn't realize you could record until after about a few of those webinars were kind of under our belt. So let me look here. Oh, I see a hi, Mr. Leno. So somebody's, spotting
Yeah.
line. This was the fake J, the real J, September 2nd, Kansas City at Union
Yeah.
Station, Kansas City Historic Venue. It's also, of course, part of the BTA Ignite event that will take place the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd. And if you're an
Mhm.
IBTI member, you'll come in that Monday, the 31st, and you'll be there for that. So it's all week. Great event, Kansas City. Had a lot of great registration numbers. So you see a lot of folks. I think we've got 56 exhibiting sponsors right now. So there's a lot of
Awesome.
vendors. You'll be able to see their latest products and services. So I don't see any other questions. I was kind of reading through them. I appreciate those of you who did submit and all of you for attending today's webinar. So again, thank you again, Sebastian and Carey, for your time and your willingness to present your expertise. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you,
having us.
Brent.
Absolutely. And so, attendees, we'll look forward to seeing you on August 19th in our next Diversifying My Business webinar. And for now, of course, as always, we thank you for your membership in the association and Evolved Office for its membership as well. So
Thank
we'll
you.
Of
say
course.
goodbye for now. We'll see you all down the road.
All
Bye all.
right. Thank you.
Bye.